better never rests.
Counting careless in the sky. What a thrilling time to be alive.
What is up, everybody? It is a Thursday edition of the Georgia Show. Palmer Toms, Jake Roos coming to you live this morning. We got nothing to talk about, right?
We're back like Christen Miller, baby. I mean, come on now. I was going to say 24 hours. It hasn't even been that long, has it, Palmer?
No, it's been just over 12 hours. Christen Miller announces plans to enter the transfer portal, then changes course this morning. Like you accurately named this this episode, the brief Christen Miller transfer portal saga. Georgia defensive lineman Christen Miller changes his plans, changes course, will stay at Georgia. I guess we can say that that's a final decision. Jake, what do you make?
Let's not get into definitives in anything in this.
Yeah,
we don't want to. It's not a corner you want to back yourself into.
We try not to speak in absolutes, and this is exactly why, y'all. So, Jake, I mean, I do agree with here DGD podcast saying love it or hate it, Miller staying is a good thing for the Georgia defensive line depth. Just what do you make of this decision? Because that right there kind of sums it up for me.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be upset about it necessarily. I understand it's a roller coaster of emotions and it's hard to follow, certainly from moment to moment, what's going on. But at the end of the day, if Georgia's able to hold on to Christen Miller, and it certainly looks like they will based on everything we're seeing right now, that's big news for Georgia. That's a guy that they wanted to keep around. That's a guy they were expecting to keep around. He's a really good player. He's a young player, a guy with his best football in front of him. Very likely. We've seen some flashes from him early in his career, but, he's kind of in that window now where he's ready to take the steps forward and, turn himself into a big contributor. I think a lot of people were hoping for that this year. They didn't know based on the last 12 hours if it would be done in between the hedges. But, I think that it's a net positive to keep Christen Miller. There's no question about that in my mind.
Yeah. And to me, the way that I kind of looked at it was, Georgia's defensive line is my biggest concern with this entire team. I don't know about you, but it is my biggest concern, just because it was a unit that was at times average last year, certainly not a strength of the defense, and you felt good about bringing back veteran guys like Nazir Stackhouse and Warren Brinson. But you needed guys to step up because depth was a concern for them last year. Depth was going to be a concern for them this year if you didn't have guys like Christen Miller step up, if you didn't have Jordan Hall, if you didn't bring in Xavier McLeod. Georgia needs those guys, and they need Christen Miller still. They needed him yesterday when he decided to leave, and they need him now as he's deciding to stay. A kid that, like you said, has shown flashes. I mean, his first year on campus out of Cedar Grove High School, redshirted, played in 4 games. But this past season played in the first 13 before sitting out the Orange Bowl. Had a meniscus issue there. That wasn't just an opt-out. He made 14 tackles, 9 solo stops, had 4 tackles for loss, with his lone sack coming against Georgia Tech. And those tackles for losses came in bunches. He had 1 in each of the first 2 games, and then 1 in each of the last 2 games that he played. Like you said, a very capable football player. We saw tackle for loss against Alabama, a sack against Georgia Tech, some of Georgia's bigger football games down the stretch there. And, certainly I think Georgia fans are expecting to see more of that this year as he, again, maybe isn't a starter. He's still going to be behind Warren Brinson and Nazir Stackhouse, 2 guys that were starters and key players for Georgia last year. But he's going to be a key player, just like he was last year. He's going to be even more key this year. And so getting him back, you're not going to turn him down.
Oh, no question about it, man. Absolutely. I mean, you got a guy not only who is talented and has all this upside, but he knows how the program works. He knows how you function and what's expected of you at Georgia. So that's not nothing either. He understands what it takes to do what he wants to do and to get where he wants to be within Georgia's system. So that's huge for sure. The fact of the matter is we're talking about guys that are 300 plus pounds. They're going to get winded. I don't care how good their conditioning is. That's just the nature of nature, to be honest with you. So, they're going to rotate guys through. Christen Miller is going to be one of those guys. And, I'm sure Georgia was able to sell him on the idea of an expanded role. And look, we can call it what it is, man. I'm sure there was some NIL money that got worked out as well. I think that his rap video that was making its rounds last night probably pointed to that being a key factor here. And let's not beat around the bush. It is for all of these guys. You're hearing that consistently and at each moment, and it is what it is. But Christen Miller, one of those guys that is a big piece of Georgia's future moving forward. He'll be a big rotational piece this year, but I think you're looking at next year as, he could be a guy.
How about Christopher Black here commenting, just got on and just learning of this C. Miller drama. What happened? Chris,
nothing. In all honesty,
nothing.
You can just forget that any of it ever happened. It was a total wash.
Jake and I were planning to come on here this morning, regardless of what happened. Christen Miller decides that he's going to enter the transfer portal. We say, hey, we're going to talk about that. That's going to take priority here. And then before we come on, Christen Miller decides that he's not going to enter the transfer portal. Just a couple of, a little bit of a snip, snap, Michael Scott situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jake, what do you make of Georgia's defensive line now going into 2024? I mean, again, we don't speak in absolutes, but as you look at the group that they've got, does not seem that they're going to be actively pursuing somebody in the transfer portal. They did that this past cycle. They went out and they got Xavier McLeod. Just what do you make of this group? Is they've gone through spring practice and they've gone through the 2023 season. A lot of those guys are returning. Really, the only one that you lose from that group, Zion Logan, Tramel Walthour, are two guys that probably aren't going to get drafted. You lose Jonathan Jefferson to the transfer portal, but you bring back the majority of your key playmakers from that group. What do you make of Trey Scott's defensive line headed into 2024?
A little bit unproven, I think, is probably the best way to consider it, but highly talented. I mean, I think that you've got somebody posted a stat. I'd have to cross-reference it to make sure it's accurate, but it was like something like 65% of your experience on the D-line comes from Warren Brinson and Nazir Stackhouse. The rest of the guys largely haven't played a lot of snaps. And so you're counting on upside and you're counting on development and you're counting on Trey Scott making good evaluations and putting guys in good positions to deliver on what is their high-level athleticism, which is why they're at Georgia. So, I can understand why it's a head scratcher for people. That makes a lot of sense to me, actually. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think it's necessarily a weak link. I don't know that that's probably a bridge too far for me. I think that you're going in cautiously optimistic about what this group could do. That would be my feeling anyway. You brought in a lot of really young guys in this past class, a lot of big upside. Joseph Jonah Ajanye is a guy that you're hearing about already making an impact in this thing. So the future's bright, and you're going to have to kind of shake some of those freshman woes off, I think, early on, because I do think some of these guys are going to be called upon, maybe not for significant minutes, but some. And some guys are going to have to grow up. Christen Miller and Jordan Hall, a lot more is about to be asked of them than was last year. It is what it is, man. This is, if you're going to be the team that reloads, not rebuilds, then you have to trust that the guys behind the guys are ready to go as well. And so we'll see, man. I think that it's going to be very, very interesting in terms of how it plays out this season, in terms of how they platoon these guys in and out. Where do these guys end up playing? And, who breaks through, because, Jordan Hall is one of those guys, man, that I had him circled last year. I thought that he would play more than he did last year. In fact, coming out of high school, going into this year, my expectations are higher for him. I think that, he needs to be one of those guys that's relied upon. Going back to that high school tape, a lot of size, a lot of speed, a guy who can get in and create some havoc. And you need that from these interior lineman guys. So a talented group, no question about it. Unproven, certainly fair to say as well.
Yeah, by our count, 13 guys on scholarship. 5 of those are true freshmen, for Georgia on the defensive line. And one of those 13 that we've got, Mykel Williams, probably going to be playing more outside linebacker than he is true defensive end. You look at that position, this defensive line as a whole. On the edge, you feel pretty good about what you've got. The fact that they are feeling like confident, hey, we can move Mykel Williams away from this, hand in the dirt defensive end, and move him more off ball a little bit. Not necessarily off ball, but stand up, two tech, 2-point stance type guy. You feel like that is a plus. A positive sign for Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins when he gets healthy, was an impact player last year. And then Gabe Harris, who had a really, really strong spring. Yep. Like you said, Joseph Jonah-Ajonye, somebody that is a capable contributor, another guy that had a really good spring. And look, Mykel is going to play with his hand in the dirt some. He's going to play defensive end. We talked to him, and he said, we asked him, hey, who would you consider your, position coach? Who would you consider to be your position group? He still said it's the defensive lineman. So, 13 guys, that's your outlook on the edge. On the interior, like we said, you've got Nazir, Stackhouse, Moore, and Brinson returning. You don't necessarily, neither of those guys are necessarily a true nose tech, nose tackle type guy that's big up in the middle. You're counting on Jamal Jarrett and Xavier McLeod there. You're probably counting on some guys to step up and maybe be a little bit smaller playing on the interior. And maybe that's a good thing for Georgia. Maybe you've got a bit more of a, presence, a pass rush presence in the middle there than, say and this isn't a knock on him at all because he was an incredible player, but, Jordan Davis was a big type guy. You weren't keeping him on the field to, rush the passer. He was in there to stop the run. Georgia's going to have some guys that are, I think, more versatile in their skill set on the defensive line. Like we said, Jordan Hall, a guy that we're looking at. Jamal Jarrett, wanting to see him step up. Xavier McLeod, wanting to see him come in after a year at South Carolina, and somebody that, we were high on coming out of high school. And then, I am curious to see what these freshmen can do as well.
I think there's opportunity.
Jordan Thomas, Nasir Johnson. Like you said, there is opportunity. They're probably not going to be starters. They're probably not going to be asked to be every down guys, but I do think that we're going to be seeing those guys on the field. We have consistently seen true freshmen on the field for Georgia on the defensive line.
Yeah.
One or two of them. Bear Alexander, Jordan Hall.
That's what I'm saying about the rotation. You have to rotate these guys in, and they have to be getting snaps. And those guys are going to see their fair share in some of the lesser games, whatever you consider those. Jason Cancel here had a question. After all the talk about teams hunting DL, do you think Jefferson is regretting going early to SMU? Jonathan Jefferson. I'm sorry. I'm going to say no to that, primarily because I think that he probably saw the writing on the wall with this incoming freshman class. And
I think Jason is also asking about, hey, do we think he's regretting the fact that he went to SMU now as opposed to waiting out? Yeah, their money's great. But as opposed to waiting out and maybe landing at a bigger school, like a Bill Norton going from Arizona, Georgia to Arizona, now at Texas.
Yeah. Who saw that coming?
Yeah, not me. But I think Jason is asking about, hey, do we think the options might have been better for Jonathan Jefferson now? It's possible, but I think that, defensive line was a priority for a lot of teams in the winter window as well. And
go and there's this old saying that you hear consistently: go where you're wanted, man. He probably felt like that was the situation where SMU was all over him. They valued his skill set. So good for the kid. I'm glad it worked out for him.
Not to mention that's a school that's making a jump to a Power 5 level now.
100%.
Or P4.
And has all the resources possible behind it. I mean, that's a school that in 10 years, God knows whatever college football will look like at that point. We'll just be we'll be talking about the college football draft tonight.
You want to put into perspective what SMU can do. Look at the fallout that came from their coaching decision in basketball. I mean, you saw the Kentucky coach leaving, because of ultimately the stream effect of SMU hiring a coach from USC. So that is certainly an athletic program that has the financial resources, has the backing, has a fan base that wants to do well. I don't think that SMU is going to be a national contender here soon, but I think that it's a good football program. I mean, Sonny Dykes going from SMU straight to TCU and competing for a national championship. Solid program, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of solid programs, we want to share with you about our partner, myperfectfranchise.net. Are you a displaced corporate executive or wanting to put your career in your own hands? Or are you an experienced entrepreneur wanting to diversify? Well, Andy Ludicky and myperfectfranchise.net can help. Andy is a huge college sports fan and franchise veteran, having owned multiple franchises and businesses. Using his expertise, he helps others find their American dream through a very thorough consultation and evaluation process. Call Andy. Put your life and your career in your own hands. Best of all, his services are 100% free to you. So what do you have to lose? Find your perfect franchise at myperfectfranchise.net. That is myperfectfranchise.net. You guys may have seen we've got a board thread running with Jake Rose. Wow, I just combined y'all's two names.
Both of us, huh?
Jake Rowe running a what do we want to call it? Like a game, a contest? Contest would be the right word.
Absolutely. It's definitely a contest.
Trying to guess with the help of my perfect franchise, trying to guess the franchise. Couple of hints out there that have been put in there. So come on over to our board and check out that contest. Contest runs for 10 days. So closing here soon. He kicked it off on April 16th, and it is April 25th as we record. So get your guesses in. And Andy wants to offer 3-month free of DawgsHQ subscription to you. So we will announce a winner later this month on that contest. So, Jake, what we originally planned to talk about on Thursday, it is the opening of the NFL draft tonight. The 2024 NFL draft starts in Detroit, 8 p.m. Eastern on ABC, ESPN, and NFL Network. Georgia has a very strong representation. Once again, last 2 years, they've been the team that has 2 years ago, they set it with 15. They set a new mark with the 15 players pick. Last year, they tied the top at 10. And so Georgia looking to hit double digits again, lead the way in the country. I don't think that they're going to lead the way. That's just my gut feeling. That Michigan group that's coming out this year is really, really strong. But Jake, just what are your overall feelings as we head into a long-awaited NFL draft?
Yeah, a lot of uncertainty, I think, when it comes to Georgia players in this draft in terms of will they go in the first round or not, right? I mean, it felt like at one time you were looking at maybe 4 or 5 guys that were possible. Now you're thinking, well, Brock Bowers for sure is going to go. Will somebody else be there with him? I mean, is Amarius Mims still a surefire first rounder? You've seen him slip in some mock drafts. Kamari Lassiter was one of those guys who was on the fence kind of the whole time. Where does he fall on people's boards? Does Ladd McConkey come and sneak into the first round? there's a lot of unknown, I think, as compared to previous years when it comes to Georgia, and that's going to be interesting to see play out. Obviously, that guy Brock Bowers is going in the first round. I don't know where. I hope to find out. Well, I see it Falcons, but I think that to me that's the big storyline with this one, Palm, is we just don't really know how these numbers are going to shake out for Georgia just yet. I think compared to the season to now, it's a wildly different narrative as to who may go where. And so I'm really interested to follow it because it's a lot more uncertainty than we've had in previous years when it comes to Georgia, when it comes to Georgia just in general, to be honest with you. So we'll see how it goes. I'm glad you're not at a frat social tonight, like you were the 2 years ago for the NFL draft. Times have
changed there.
Yeah. You're a grown man. You're a professional. We appreciate that. But to me, that's the big storyline tonight: is who sneaks in, who's out. How does it all end up playing out? How about you?
Yeah. Funny enough, I was thinking back on that. I was like, gosh, I really put Jake in a bad spot. I tried to. I was having a real bad time that night.
I was having a real bad time that night, Palmer.
and if I'm not mistaken, I don't think it was a one night thing either. I think I extended it into. I think I extended it into Thursday and Friday. Look,
the first 2 nights of the draft, in fact.
Yeah. But hey,
good for you coming back for rounds 4 through 7. Yeah. Way to come back for rounds 4 through 7. Those are the money rounds. Those are the ones people are.
If I recall correctly, I think I let you go, and I handled the entire 4 through 7 by myself. So, no, very different times. And look, I think that was such a special draft for Georgia.
Sure.
That the last 2 have really been special. Those are teams that are coming off of national championships. This is not a team that's coming off of a national championship. Now, a lot of guys that contributed to national championships, this guy right here contributed to both of them. A lot of these guys contributed, especially to that second one. I do think that Georgia, I put in my predictions today. I don't think that Ladd ends up sneaking into the first round, but I think that is probably the biggest storyline for Georgia tonight, at least. Where does Brock Bowers go? How high does Amarius Mims go? Because Brock, being that tight end and tough position to project, where exactly is he going to fall? Is he going to go? How high could he go? Could he go in the top 10? Yeah, absolutely. I'd be a fan of the Titans taking him at 7 if Joe Alt isn't there, the tackle from Notre Dame. But I think that the Chargers would consider him at 5. I think, would it be crazy for a team to trade up and get him? I don't know that we're going to see a trade up just because there is that stigma around. I mean, what the Falcons did a couple years ago to go get, Kyle Pitts and take him as highly as he did. I think that people look at that tight end position differently. But that being said, there's going to come a point where there's a team that may not have a huge need, or the players that are available don't necessarily match their need, and Brock Bowers is available and he's the best available player, and you take him because he's going to make your football team better. I do think my gut says he goes in the top 10.
What about Mims?
If he slips past 10, he's not going far. I think Amarius Mims is going higher than a lot of people think.
Okay.
And I think that, the recent buzz around this draft has been that the tackles, teams are getting tackle hungry here. Amarius is not a left tackle. He is a right tackle. So that might knock him down a little bit. He's not going to be up there with Joe Alt. He's not going to be up there with Olu Fashanu and some of these other guys. I am just not even going to attempt to pronounce half these tackle names. But those are the 2.
We should probably get off here pretty soon. Check your text messages. Some breaking news here on the Georgia show. Per Pete Nakos, Arizona State transfer quarterback Jaden Rashada has committed to the Georgia Bulldogs. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up.
Jake, how about you react to that? I mean,
yeah, you hop off.
I can handle posting, while we're on.
All right, that's fine.
Here's an inside look at how we handle stuff.
All right, yeah,
Jake, just react to that.
All right, so Jaden Rashada to Georgia. Big news. The Bulldogs wanted a transfer quarterback in this class, and now they have it. It appears to be the case. Jaden Rashada in for the Georgia Bulldogs. I wrote a column on this earlier this week. I don't know that anybody would have had the Jaden Rashada show coming to Georgia circled 6, 8, 12 months ago. But now that it's the case that he is available, Georgia wanted a talented guy. They wanted a guy who would come in and fight. And Jaden Rashada is nothing if not that. He is a guy who is going to come in and compete for this spot. He probably sees the opportunity as a writing on the wall, or with writing on the wall, that this could be one of those situations where he could come in next year and, take the spot. Gunnar Stockton, not a sure thing. Ryan Puglisi is a freshman. So come in, fight it out. My thought is that this is a no-lose situation for Georgia. You're bringing in added depth. You're bringing in a tremendously talented player and a guy that very much, was sought after, was a coveted quarterback. Ask Florida, ask Arizona State, ask anybody. Yeah, that's a good comment there, Hunter Beard. Kirby planned this day out. What a morning it has been. Hold on, I'm tweeting that we are live reacting to Jaden Rashada news.
I've got that handled. Don't worry.
Okay. So he's a guy that I think absolutely is worth the take. You don't know exactly. You didn't see a ton of him last year. 3 games, I believe he appeared in for Arizona State. He looked good in those opportunities. I think he probably saw the writing on the wall as far as things moving forward. But Jaden Rashada to Georgia, just a big get. Addresses a need for Georgia. They want to carry 4 scholarship quarterbacks. Now they're able to do so. He had a number of suitors. He had a number of people that were coming after him. He had a number of other opportunities. We heard UNC mentioned. We heard Auburn mentioned. So he had a lot of opportunities that weren't just Georgia. And I wrote in my column, if he's looking for the easiest path, it won't be at Georgia. If he's looking for the most NIL, it won't be at Georgia. If he's looking for, guaranteed playing time, it won't be at Georgia. Simple enough, right? So I think it says a lot to this young man that he would choose to be there, that he would choose to go with the Bulldogs ultimately. And kudos, major kudos to Kirby Smart and Mike Bobo for bringing this kid in on an official visit. He's one and done, it appears. That's what we have today, so that's what we'll work with. We thought this about Jaden Maava. I've almost forgotten that kid's name because that was such a short thing. So look, it ain't over till the fat lady sings. We need some ink on some paper somewhere. But certainly it appears that Jaden Rashada will be a Georgia Bulldog come this fall. And huge news for Georgia, especially, like I said, knowing everything that we did going into this season, that they wanted to go ahead and bring a player like that in. So I don't know how you sell it any other way, Palm. I don't know how you downplay that one either. Is he the future of the position? I don't know that. I'm not going that far to say that. Do I think that he makes the quarterback room better immediately? Yes, 100%.
Yes, no doubt that he makes this quarterback room better. You feel a lot better about your backup situation if, God forbid, Carson Beck goes down. You wouldn't wish that upon anybody. Whether you're a Georgia fan or, just somebody that wants college football to look good, or just, a good person that doesn't want to see a quarterback like that, have hopes and dreams crushed. God forbid Carson Beck goes down. Georgia was not in a great situation. And that is not a knock on Gunnar Stockton. That is not a knock on Ryan Puglisi. Neither of those guys is a super experienced option. Jaden Rashada is not a super experienced option, but I think he's as talented as there is anyone out there. And, there's a reason why he was highly coveted coming out of high school. And there's a reason why he was highly coveted coming out of this transfer portal here. Georgia getting that first visit, like you said, so big because it just takes away the possibility. Georgia had a lot to offer, a lot to sell. And if he gets to go visit somewhere else, maybe their sales pitch doesn't sound so great because, there are there's attractive things about other schools and the offers that they would have as well. Maybe sooner playing time, maybe more money. But Georgia and the roster that is going to surround Jaden Rashada here, when and if he takes this, job, is as talented as anybody out there. I mean, you're not going to find a better group of players than the one that will be surrounding Jaden Rashada, or whoever this quarterback is. So, the
top-rated quarterback in the transfer portal per on 3. So, I mean, look, and we were talking about this on the board this morning. As upset as people were about the Christen Miller thing, right? Georgia's participating in the transfer portal too. They're using it. It's to their benefit in a lot of these cases. Colby Young, Ra Thomas, and Dominic Lovett are going to be 3 key contributors for you at wide receiver. Benjamin Urasek is going to be a key contributor at tight end. They know what they're doing. They're using this stuff just like everybody else is as well. That's what people, I think, have to keep in mind. So Jaden Rashada, a massive pickup for Georgia, and really makes for what will be, I think, an interesting spring next year in terms of who is around, who's competing for it. I think the good news is, too, one of the things that can't be underrated when you're talking about this is you look at Ryan Puglisi and you look at your 2025 commit, Ryan Montgomery. You've got 2 guys there who have been pretty unfazed by competition, pretty unfazed by the idea of competition, seemingly welcome the opportunity to compete. And so bringing in a guy like this, at least in my opinion, and I could be 100% wrong, and we'll see, but your young guys have to this point seemed nonplussed by the idea that something of this nature would shake them up. So that's big news for them as well. Gunnar Stockton, probably the guy who's affected most by this news. And, I think next spring we'll probably see those 2 dueling it out. If I were guessing, I would think it would be Rashada versus Stockton going into the spring next year. But,
and I think Puglisi will be a part of that.
He's not out of the running. Too. I just think I'm giving the edge to experience.
No, absolutely. You absolutely give a nod to experience, but you got to remember that Puglisi will be a year. Puglisi and Rashada will have the same amount of experience in this system.
Sure, in the system, yes.
Puglisi will actually have more because of a spring head start, 7 practices that he got before his injury. But I mean that right there, the injury is another.
The presence of Jaden Rashada, though, I think affects Gunnar Stockton much more than it affects.
Absolutely it does because obviously
the window's closed.
Gunner's exactly. Gunner's got a shorter window, less years of eligibility left. Yep. And so Georgia bringing in somebody like this, that would be something that might scare off some guys. But Gunnar has been made very well aware of the fact that, hey, Georgia's going to bring in a transfer portal quarterback. All these quarterbacks were. They've made it known that they want 4. And I think that it'll be interesting to see because I don't know how much this changes Gunnar for this year. I don't know how much it changes for Georgia this year. Again, Carson Beck is going to be your starter.
I don't think it changes much for Georgia this year outside of a little. You're probably feeling a little. You're sleeping a little bit better at night, right? Knowing you're done.
No doubt.
That's what changes this year, in my opinion.
No doubt.
And Gunnar Stockton, I still expect to be QB2.
Yeah, no, I would say that too. Just again because of the experience advantage. Right. It may be a situation where, hey, if Carson were to go down, Gunnar goes in, and then maybe you see those guys competing for a job. If it became a longer term deal. But no doubt, I think that Gunnar is the second quarterback going into games for Georgia if that situation arises, so. It's certainly a big deal. It doesn't. I think this is big for the future of Georgia, and I think that to be able to look. I mean, in the last when was the Ryan Montgomery commitment? A week ago?
Last week, yeah,
like a week ago. Which feels just forever ago at this point, but I think it was exactly a week ago. The way that Georgia has shored up the future of this quarterback room in a week is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
To go from, putting yourself in a situation in that class of 2025 where you're going after somebody as highly coveted as Juju Lewis, and you're risking completely whiffing on the quarterback spot for a second time in 3 years, like they did in 2023 with Arch. You couldn't really risk that. And Ryan Montgomery is a great option there. Somebody that absolutely wants to be in Athens, isn't scared off by competition. So you get him on board for the class of 2025. You've made it known to all these guys, hey, we want to have 4 scholarship quarterbacks. They've made that known. Kirby's made that known publicly. Kirby's made that known in these recruiting visits. These kids know that. And Ryan Montgomery's not scared off by that. Jaden Rashada's not scared off by that. Gunnar Stockton's not scared off by that. Ryan Puglisi wasn't scared off by that. And I think that speaks volumes about, what Georgia has to offer to a quarterback. Whoever is out there on the field is going to have incredible weapons around them. That is an incredibly attractive place to be playing football. You're going to have NIL opportunities as the quarterback, as QB1 of the Georgia Bulldogs. You are going to have NIL opportunities because you're going to be the face of a big brand. You don't necessarily need to get get the bag out of high school per se. Not even per se. You don't need to get that, you come to Georgia, NIL, opportunities await, NFL opportunities await, as we go back to what we were talking about there. It ultimately, you're looking at a situation where Georgia has shored up this room, and it's with a lot of guys, that have bought into a big idea that, hey, there might be some waiting involved, but whenever you're on the field, if you're ever on the field here, you're going to be in a great situation.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. Uncle Glenn says 3 QBs in a month. Jared Curtis. Gosh, I guess was that within this last month? Good Lord. What a month.
Yeah. Jared Curtis committed to Georgia
April has been a great 2024. That's what I will say. It's been a
on
year.
On the 23rd of March. So just over a month.
Yeah.
Just over a month.
Yeah. There you go.
So
what an absolute what a couple days here, Paul.
And what a show.
Let's go do some work. Come over and check us out at DawgsHQ. You can check us out for 2 months for $1. I believe that code is DawgsOne, if I'm not mistaken. DAWGS1. 2 months, $1. Come see what we're all about. That'll take you into official visit season. All your recruiting. We'll have you covered on all this. We've been on top of the Rashada stuff since it began. So come on over, hang out with us. We appreciate it. A lot more to get to. Palmer is going back into his hole to write Jaden Rashada reaction all day. So get over and give the boys some clicks. We appreciate you guys tuning in to this edition of the Georgia Show. For Palmer Toms, I'm Jake Roos. Adios.